Welcome everyone. Today is October 8th, 2020, and this is what got our attention. I'm Mike, and we have a couple stories today that are going to be very interesting as far as the RTX community, and also we have some good news about Cyberpunk that I get to talk about during our Cyberpunk update, so that's always good. And then I'm also here with Brian today.
News, that's fine. I'm looking forward to watching Mike scream.
And I'm also here with Bruno as well.
What up? Yeah, really excited to tell you guys how NVIDIA still sucks with their newest launch, and talk about some PlayStation things that I'm excited about, and maybe some things that I'm not as excited about, but we'll see.
Yeah, so when Brian brought up a good point as watching me scream, so we talked about it last podcast that I was going to do a Shocktober. And if you're not familiar with that, what that means is basically I don't like scary games. It's never been a thing of mine. I've never really enjoyed them. I'm not really a super scary movie fan either. Like it's really, it depends on the type of scary. Like sci-fi doesn't really bother me too much, but it kind of gets weird. You talk about ghosts and poltergeists, then no, I'm out, right? So we decided to do a Shocktober, and what's going to happen is we had talked about this last week, but starting tomorrow through the rest of the month, every Friday, I'm going to be playing a scary game, which tomorrow I'm going to be playing Alien Isolation, which is the first one to kind of lead me into this a little bit, since like I said, I'm not too worried about sci-fi, but I know it's still a scary game. The little twist I put on it, though, is that I'm actually going to be doing this as a fundraiser for a charity named Able Gamers Charity, which we talked about in our last podcast as well, that one of our viewers had sent in an email about using them. And it turns out they're really easy. They have a really easy way to do integration with Twitch. So I'll be able to stream, and I have the links already set up so you can donate strictly to the donation for it. So I'm going to do that for the rest of the month, try to raise some money for the charity, along with, you guys getting to watch me scream. So just for a good cause. And that's kind of it. It's going to start tomorrow, like I said, on Fridays. It'll be every Friday for the rest of the month from 8 to 11 p.m. Tentative. I mean, it could be a little longer, maybe a little less, but probably to shoot for at least 11. And all the donations and all the subs that come through Twitch at that time for my channel, I'm going to donate those to Able Gamers. So there's already a link on my page, on my Twitch page, that you can donate directly to them through the app that we have. And then if I do receive any subs, I'll do that separately, and I'll just put that on social media so you guys see it. But that's the idea.
So
it's going to be fun.
I've got some incentive for you.
Oh God.
You pick whichever one you're most nervous about.
The last one.
Let me know which one it is.
The last one.
The last one?
Yeah, Evil Within.
I will donate $1 for every minute you play up to $100.
All right. I'm going to play it for 2 hours, I guess. I hope. That's the plan. So the schedule right now is the first.
No, I'll do it up to $120.
Okay.
I'll do $1 for every minute you play up to 120 minutes.
Sounds good to me. That'll be awesome. So the first game is Alien Isolation starting tomorrow. Next Friday is going to be Blair Witch. The week after that will be Resident Evil 7. And then the final game will be the Evil Within 2. If you're familiar with that series, it's got like a third person look, but they uploaded, or they did a first person like a patch or a ability you can play like a DLC. So you can play the whole game in first person, which I think looks even more terrifying. And I literally noped out of the trailer itself, but for the cause, I guess I'm going to do it. I'm not looking forward to that, but hopefully I'll make the 2 hour mark on that one. But we'll see. We'll just see what happens. But like I said, everything's going to be going to Able Gamers, so it's really for a good cause, and really appreciate you guys helping out. I will say thanks to everyone who's already looked. I actually posted this on Monday saying this is what we're going to be doing. My goal was like set to $100 because I just didn't really know what kind of response I would get. Within 24 hours, already hit the $100 mark. So I increased that to 500, and I'm going to probably keep increasing. If we can hit 500, which would be amazing, because like I said, this is all going to charity. If we hit 500, I may increase it again, and then we'll just keep going. And then depending on how crazy it may get, I mean, maybe I'll do something special for if we hit a certain goal, which I'll talk about later. Maybe we'll see. I'll have to see what I want to do, but so so yeah, that's basically what I had.
One of the things I think that would be great as a goal, and we've luckily we got all month to talk about this, but I think it'd be nice that even if this spills a little into November, that's fine. But if we hit a certain goal, maybe we can have a shared movie night where, anybody who donated can join in on Twitch, because Twitch has an option where you can, I believe it's down to the affiliate level now, so we'll have to double check, but you can choose any movie that's on Amazon Prime and simulcast it so that everybody's watching it and you can sit there and talk over it and BS. And
yeah, I mean,
so I think that'd be a fun night.
That'd be cool. We can look into it. I don't know, at this point what we'll end up raising or what we'll do, but the whole idea was to have fun. Obviously watch me scream, and then also helping out those Able Gamers charity. If you didn't pay attention last time or wasn't listening to that one yet, basically Able Gamers helps kids with disabilities that aren't able to play with controllers or keyboards or mouse. They're able to design controllers that they're able to use, whether it's like a one-handed stick or even a voice-activated type controller that they can use. So it's really neat, gives everybody the ability to kind of play, and it's a really cool charity. So I definitely am looking forward to that. So with that, that's basically the news that I have personally. But I know there's a lot of news out there that we need to get into, and we're going to start with that. So let's take it away. Go ahead, Phoenix. Tell us what we got going.
Well, I mean, we try to do breaking news. We try to do stuff that even happens the day that we go to record. And sure enough, that happened.
It's like that every Thursday.
AMD finally made their announcement on the new Zen 3 Ryzen processors. And they're going to be Ryzen 5000 series. They did that to avoid the confusion with the 4000 series that is actually on the Zen 2 architecture that is, for laptops. But they're got these new processors that are coming out. And instead of doing what we've seen in the past where they'll either start off with just the high ends and then later they might move into the low ends, or maybe they just do like the low end and the high end, right, and then they fill in the middle a little bit later. No, they got the whole gamut from high end to low end, and they'll fill in more gaps later, but they've got, a base level that's a good processor all the way up to their highest level processor with various levels of pricing for them. And they're all going to be available sooner than we thought. And they said that they're going to be releasing the 5600X, which is their kind of base level 6-core, 12-thread, 3.7 gigahertz, boosting up to 4.6 gigahertz, $300.
Wow. And
the nice thing they said about all of these processors is that if you have a Zen 2 processor, which is the 3000 series Ryzen's, already in a motherboard, that you do an update to the motherboard and you can pop in the same core count for the 5000 series, and you're going to see about a 26% increase in its ability, its speed, including frame rate on 1080p video that might be CPU bound more than GPU bound. So sometimes you run into the case where the CPU isn't processing things fast enough for the GPU. Well, this will give you a 26% increase.
Yeah, I've run into some games like that, especially I played City Skyline for a lot of Planet Coaster, and a lot of those games run off of CPU rather than GPU. And once you start building your park or your city a little large, it starts taxing, and you can really tell everything starts slowing down, and definitely needing that extra resource will be great.
Well, then maybe you might want to bump it up from the 5700X to the 5700X, 8-core, 16-thread, 3.8 gigahertz to 4.7 gigahertz boost, $450, still really reasonable. Or chucking another $100 at them and going up to the 550 range, you get the 5900X, 12-core, 24-thread, 3.7 to 4.8 gigahertz.
See, that's my recommendation. Why buy a PS5? You could just buy the 5900. There you go. You're good.
Yeah.
Oh, kidding.
You'll have a little processor sitting there, nothing else. Especially if you don't have an AMD-based motherboard.
It's about goals. You set goals, and then eventually you'll have this computer that you can use in the future.
Yeah. Then they released their big daddy, which is the 5950X, which they have been testing it in several different tests. and it has been beating out the top of the line Intel processor, 10th gen Intel processor, 16 core, 32 thread. It's only 3.4 base clock, so it's a little bit slower on the base clock, but it boosts up to 4.9, $800. All of these are dropping November 5th.
Sweet.
So if you're in the market for a new PC, wait. Don't build anything yet. Don't build anything the start of November. In fact, maybe even wait till Black Friday to pick up some of the extra things that you might need on top of the processor, because by then a lot of the reviews are going to come out and you're going to see some real world reviews, not just manufacturer reviews that, of course they're going to show you the best of, their tests, and find out, okay, because for $550, that 5900X looks like a heck of a processor. I don't know if it's worth it to go up to 800 for the little bit extra boost and the 4 more cores. But right now, with the 5950 being what they're saying is the fastest processor for gaming, this is going to be a pretty impressive launch.
Yeah.
Also today, they did a quick look at Big Navi. They showed the card. That's the newest GPU that's going to be coming out for the Radeon line. So that should be the Radeon 6000 series. And they didn't say too much other than the fact that they did some benchmarks on it. They showed 4K 60 gaming, 4K above 60 gaming. It looked fantastic, but we're going to have to, again, see reviews on it. And they didn't give very much information. They said that October 28th, they're going to have another news dump where they're talking just about Big Navi.
Well,
so I'm looking forward to that. I think both of them are pretty exciting, even if it's just to give more competition out there to force Intel and NVIDIA to get back on top of their game. Or maybe you're building a new PC and you still can't get a 3080 by then, and the Big Navi is going to be just about as good. Then, this might be the way.
It's dropping on the 28th.
I was going to say, you could probably ask Dymyrn, you'd email us if you want to email him about, do you think you should probably get the processor when it releases? Because I'm sure with all the other releases that are coming out with people dropping the ball, we'll see if they can at least hit the mark that they're talking about and actually shoot those in the right time.
I mean, I'll be clear right now. I'm hoping that my back-ordered 3080 does not come through until at least a week or two after AMD's drop, because I may very well cancel it the second that I can get my hands on an AMD card if it's as good as it's sounding like it's going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Moving on that same topic, essentially, we're just switching gears to the other side of the discussion. NVIDIA has taken the opportunity, or made the decision, I think it's them taking an opportunity to protect themselves. They're delaying the launch of the RTX 3070 by roughly 2 weeks to October 29th.
That's so easy. That's so easy to do. All they had to do was look and go, yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. They haven't really done anything spectacular here to protect anybody or to help anybody out. They're just doing it because, their last 2 launches, if you haven't listened to the podcast that came previously, were really, really awful. It was kind of like the 3080 launched and people were like, wow, we thought the PS5 pre-orders couldn't go any more wrong. Like, nobody could do worse than that. And then it was like, joke's on you. Here's NVIDIA just smashing barriers, breaking ceilings, just really showing everybody just how bad you can pull off a release. And then the 3090s came out shortly after that, and that was also an abysmal release. Actually worse than the 3080. So there was a lot of reasoning for them to push the 3070 release back, especially seeing as it is the most consumer-friendly card in terms of cost for what you're getting, really. I think the 3080 probably is the best overall in terms of performance and price, because an NVIDIA card with that much power at $700 is unheard of, considering the predecessor is like $1,200 to $1,600 for 20%-ish less computing power. Just it's a wild difference when you think about the price drop. But nobody can get their hands on it, so does it really matter?
And the 3070 is what, $499? I think, or is it $399?
37. Let me confirm because I actually forget if it's
I think it's
$399 or
interesting that AMD, who made their announcement today, because NVIDIA pushed this back previous today, and they pushed back the 3070 release to October 29th. And today, NVIDIA's like, you're going to hear the next about Big Navi on October 28th.
Yeah.
So
it is $499 for the release of the 3070. But yeah, it's going to be interesting with now the 3070 releasing quite literally one day past the AMD release
announcement.
AMD announcement and release. AMD will announce and release the same day, as far as I have been advised or seen.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
So their intent is to do their discussion, show off all their cards, and then the stores will go live that same day with the product. From everything that I've heard. So
and we should have reviews out prior to that. Because they'll send at least engineering samples out to the reviewers.
Hopefully working ones that don't crash all the time. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to compare it against the 3080.
Yeah,
so
that's exactly what's going to happen.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they should. I mean, that's literally the benchmark right now. Like, that would be the perfect benchmark. So
the benchmark is the 3080, so that's definitely what they're competing against. So, yep, the RTX 3070 pushed back to October 29th. I still don't think that there's going to be enough stock. So if you're seriously planning on trying to purchase one, set your timer for 15 minutes before launch. Purchase your bot. No, I'm just kidding. Don't purchase bots.
Just goes to show you, don't pre-order, especially hardware. Wait for the reviews. Yeah. Wait for the information.
Yeah, the 3090 proved that for sure.
Yeah. And information is something that we talked about with the consoles last week, where we were getting tons and tons of information about the Xbox, but we weren't getting a whole bunch of information about the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
And this week, the information started popping, not all of it good, but information started popping up about the PlayStation 5, which was fantastic.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah. So Dymyrn, tell us a little bit about this teardown video.
So they released a teardown video for the entire PS5 where the I believe it was the lead engineer. You get to watch him take it completely apart. There was a lot of cool things about this. First of all, that entire system is practically one giant heatsink.
Right.
If you watch the video, the heatsink is like legitimately ridiculous. The overall size of it, when he actually pulls it out of the system, you realize, wow, this system is 60% heatsink. So there are a lot of cool aspects. Based on the information given, it is very quiet. It is a very quiet system. It does have, I believe it was 2 large fans built into it. The sidings do come off, which makes me think and makes me kind of excited for the idea of swappable side pieces, like side paneling,
probably
for the PlayStation.
Like,
that'd be cool.
Like,
I could just imagine the possibilities. Like right now, to get your console customized, there's a lot of work for it. But this, you could just pop it off and dip it if you wanted to. You could do really cool things like that. So,
or have somebody do a vinyl wrap on it.
Yeah.
You know.
So
that'd be cool.
There's a lot of cool things about it. It looks well built. I mean, obviously there's some conflict around the additional memory slot. But the whole teardown video showed that the system is really cleanly built. Taking it apart did not look like an arduous task by any means. I mean, for the normal person, maybe not, but for anybody who has a little bit of know-how, looks like something that anybody could do to do a full clean on your PS5, which I was really excited about because like right now doing a full clean on your console is good luck. You're going to break something you didn't intend to.
That's a funny thing is typically game makers or the companies don't want you to take apart the consoles at all. Like they were usually like, if you take apart, this is like the little line, that little sticker, it says like, if you remove this, then your warranty is completely voided. And it's like, now you're just like, yeah, we can just take it apart, you know?
Well, they actually said that at the beginning of the video.
Oh,
do not disassemble. They said this is for informational purposes only.
Yeah.
Do not do this at home. If you disassemble your because they actually disassembled the whole thing.
Yeah.
They're not talking about just taking off the sides.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Even anything, usually they're like, don't touch it. You know, that's, crazy. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did that for the PS4. They even did it a little bit for the PS3. I like the fact that you can remove the sides. There's actually dust catch areas that you can vacuum out. That's fantastic. I do think it's very funny that they did this whole like showy thing. They make this big deal about how you unscrew the base from the bottom and then you flip something and then you can take something out and put it in and it covers up the screw hole and then you can clip it onto the side. And then Microsoft and Xbox released a video and said, we wanted to give you an instructional video of how to put your Xbox console on its side too. You take it like this and you put it like this. It was beautiful.
Yeah. So with other PlayStation 5 news this week, we saw that there was actually an accidental leak, sort of. So there's it's like not a sister company or something that's basically with a partnership with PS5, PlayStation in France, like their France department or headquarter building or whatever. They had revealed that the PlayStation 5 would add trophy progress, which is a lot of things that a lot of people look into as far as achievements. Like that's, the achievement sense for PlayStation. And they said, for example, like, and it would be the progress that you'd be able to see with that. So instead of like just whether you have it or not, you could see the progress towards it. So you would feel like you need to collect 20 gems for a bronze. Then it would show you how many gems you have until like you basically unlock that bronze trophy. But that soon, it's basically after they'd revealed this, it was deleted immediately. And then obviously we couldn't find it anywhere. And of course, obviously it seemed like this was a mistake. They shouldn't have done that. And this is a comic book gaming article, but the idea is it was posted. It sounds like something that we wanted to say, or they wanted to announce, but I think it was a little early. They were trying not to necessarily announce this yet. They may not have all the fine-tuned parts of it to know exactly how they were going to do the trophy system. But since they already released it, they kind of had to try to backtrack on that, and then we'll just see if they actually do get the trophy system like we're expecting.
Yeah. Going further in news, there were some cool things about that video that they posted where they had the teardown. And Bruno covered a lot of it. One of the things that I thought was interesting is that we actually got to see where it has the expandability for the main hard drive, the main SSD, which is, we discussed this before with the Xbox. The Xbox has a proprietary card that slots in. It costs $220. And then you have where you're going to have a standard NVMe SSD connection in the back. You just take off the cover, just take off those sides, and you have access where you can put this SSD in and expand the existing hard drive up however much you want. Interestingly enough, should cost about the same, about $220. This is going to become important because both consoles are going to have an operating system running on this SSD. Microsoft's Xbox is not going to have a terabyte free. It's about 120 gig for its operating system. So it's going to have about 880 free. Well, with the PlayStation, it looks like it's going to be a little bit less. They start, of course, on 825. Looks like they're going to have about 664 gig of usable storage space free for your games. So a little bit over half a terabyte is what you're going to be playing with, which seems like a lot until you start saying, oh, well, Call of Duty is approaching 150
You install
gig.
Call of Duty and then you realize you can't play anything else.
Right. And, Baldur's Gate 3, while the alpha is fairly small, it's putting aside 150 gig. And it's only chapter 1. There's going to be chapters 2 and 3. So Baldur's Gate 3 might approach the 150 gig range. Cyberpunk initially said smaller, but they even upgraded how much they said is going to be needed for disk space. So these games are getting bigger. And if you're going to be running 4K gaming with 4K assets, you're going to need the disk space. And you can't just plug in a USB 3 one. So that's one of the things that people are going to have to look at is how often do I have no data cap? If I have no data cap, well, then I'll just uninstall it and reinstall it.
Yeah.
Well, neither of them have been really fantastic about installing a new game and how fast it goes. I've had better luck on the Microsoft side than the Sony side, but it's also depends on where you live. So this smaller disk space is going to be interesting. Still, 664 not bad. Go spend another $220 and upgrade it to, another terabyte and probably be looking fantastic after that.
It's unfortunately really just something you have to anticipate nowadays, I guess. Like, it's almost unavoidable even now with my personal computer. I mean, there was a time when I could run on a 500 gig hard drive, and now I'm running on like almost 3 terabytes worth of space. And still, sometimes I'm like, I have to delete some games because, you start installing things. You've got like, I don't even know, at one point I had like Killing Floor, Elder Scrolls, Witcher, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, Valorant, League of Legends, all these games, and eventually you're like, oh wow, crap, like I'm using 2.5 terabytes already. So it's definitely an expense that you now have to include for that, or you just have to deal with the reality of console gaming, which one of the downsides is space.
Yeah, internet and space, because internet was the other thing too, is after the PlayStation 2 era, when it was just introducing the modem that you could potentially get, and it was like, ooh, what would you use that for? And it's like, ever since then it's been kind of like online, like, I mean, that was the whole debacle, right? When PlayStation 4 got released, it's like, great, I got my PlayStation 4, but it's trying to update and I don't have internet, so it's like taking on my 10 days to do an update before I can even launch it. And
it's unavoidable.
Yeah, and you can't do anything with it. So it's like to get to that point where you're basically always reliant on the internet and space and bandwidth. Like that's always a part of, console wars at this point. Because I mean, not even
even when you had fast internet, Sony has traditionally really been slow on updating games. And that's the other thing too, is with these games in both consoles, typically they're not downloading a hotfix and applying a quick little patch, very much like Steam does. A lot of times with the consoles, they have to download Destiny 2, the update coming up. It's going to take like 20% less space because of the way they rewrote stuff. The problem is you have to re-download the entire game.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
And that's how most of the patches go.
It's like, even if you tell yourself like, well, it's going to be fine, I'm going to buy all my games on discs. That doesn't matter. It really doesn't to a large degree, because you might have 50 gigs worth of the game on a disc, and then when you put that disc in your console, it's going to say I have to download like the day one patch for the game. And then when it goes to download the day one patch, you're like, this is 47 more gigs.
Yeah.
Where does this go? The optical drive is too slow.
Yeah. So
so it doesn't run. None of these games will run off disk at all. They install from that disk onto the SSD drive. Yeah. Because the optical drive is way too slow.
And 2 points that I have on that is like literally like if you go pop in, because like obviously Grand Theft Auto 5 is still popular. If you go buy that game right now on a disc, pop it in, that was like a 60 gigs for the install on that, and for like the actual game. And then you would still have to download all the patches since then, because that wasn't, the original game that they've had now, like what's out now. And the second part of that is, even, and this isn't just a console thing with the internet bandwidth thing, because even like Steam platforms, so I'm more on PC, right? So I play most of my games through PC, whether it's Steam or Epic or whatever at this point. But they cap you. So Steam only allows like up to 10, I think 10% of what your total bandwidth is what you can download. So it's like, I only get, even with fiber, I'm only getting like 10 megs down on a good day. Like if it's like everything is good to go. But that depends, because like Epic and Origin, like they'll let me get like, I think I downloaded Anthem when it first came out. I think I downloaded it in like 11 minutes. It was like a 60 plus gig game. So it just really depends on, the platform, if they even allow you to download it that fast. So that's it's also
and they won't. It usually sets in between like 10 and 20 per second for PlayStation. And I think Microsoft usually wins out by about 5 to 10 more whenever I download something on my Xbox One X, because Microsoft has just always been better at that, which is something very apparent if you download anything off of like the Xbox Game Pass. It's like, oh, this is 60 gigs.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Step away to grab a drink, come back, and you're like, oh, it's done. Cool.
Yep. It's already launched, and you're like, I didn't even mean to launch the game yet.
Yeah. So it'll
be
interesting.
The PlayStation launch is actually another thing. So we talked about before of like the way that PlayStation is saying that they're going to, obviously have more consoles than they did in PlayStation 4. This is going to be a bigger release. They're expecting to sell more. So they said it again, and they said, we think the PlayStation 5 will sell more in its fiscal year than we sold in the fiscal year of the time of the PlayStation 4 launch. And it's like, well, yeah, I would hope so. I mean, like, that's not, I mean, they keep harping on that, but it's not a huge selling point. Like, I would hope that you would sell more. It's
the market's bigger.
Yeah, the market's bigger. Everybody, especially right now, everybody's at home. Like, you think you'd sell more because people can spend more time at home, using the console in their living room versus like going out to the bar or whatever. So I don't know. It's just, they keep reiterating that. I'm still debating if they even have enough to sell. Like if they even have enough stock that they think they keep saying they do. Cause I don't know, for the to keep saying that, it's just, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. And the number keeps getting smaller because we reported this on September 17th. And back then it was like, they cut it down from, 15 million down to 11 million. And then Sony was like, oh, well, we never said we were doing 50 million. So we didn't cut anything down. Okay, fine. We'll give you that one. And so they're saying, oh yeah, we want to do 11 million. But now they're saying in 6 months, they want to do 7 million. So the number just got smaller again. And I'm curious why they keep making the number smaller.
Yeah. There's just really, it doesn't really make any sense.
I think a lot of things just keep changing for them. It's one of those things where they won out the last series. Overall, the PlayStation 4 was just more popular.
Yeah,
I think
agree.
Microsoft and PlayStation went into it, and each one of them went into it with their own goals. Microsoft made way more mistakes. They were almost kind of the greedier contender in it, and because of that, they lost. And then this time, PlayStation's been riding high for a long period of time, and I really like PlayStation exclusives, but at the end of it, they focused too much on one thing, too much on what they felt brought the money. They've fallen short in other places, and now they're just kind of trying to make sure that they at least maintain the same status they had before, full well knowing that Microsoft is probably going to outsell them overall as a product and a network than they're going to have. And to add to it, which leads us into our next story, if Sony hasn't had enough problems already getting their foot up there, because a lot of people are definitely on Team Microsoft in terms of who's been doing better, which is fairly legitimate. I mean, again, the only thing I can say is PlayStation has the exclusives, which is great. I love the exclusives, but it's all that I can really say at this point. In India, it's reportedly the PS5 may have a delayed release due to an ongoing set of legal issues they're having. Somebody dropped the ball at Sony and failed to trademark PS5 in India, meaning that they're currently working with the government there to figure out what they can do. They will not tell anybody what the current status is, but it does not seem like there is any resolution. Otherwise, they would have already come out and said that there was, because they're very open about any successes and very quiet about any failures. So as of right now, Sony does not own the PS5 trademark in India, which is obviously going to hold some things up for them if they don't sort that out within the very small amount of time left.
I mean, trust me, if I owned the PS5 trademark, do you think I'd let that go easily? I'd be like, nah, I own that. So you want it? Okay, well then you can pay me for it.
What I'm trying to figure out is, because it's a single resident, by the way, in Delhi, who applied for the PS5 trademark. What I'm trying to figure out is, what does he sell? Because for you to have a trademark, you need to be doing trade using that mark. You have to be selling something using that symbology as it is.
He legitimately just sells little patches.
Yeah,
people shirts or something. Sells knockoff PS4s, calls them PS5s.
Or he's a huge Persona 5 fan and he's like making patches for that or something, like fan t-shirts. And then there's like another like whole like trademark war.
Yeah. So it's just very interesting that like, what is this guy even selling that he has some type of case here? Because if he wasn't selling anything, I think that this would be done and over with pretty darn quick. But
yeah, I mean, PS5, I mean, that's pretty vague. Like that's not like, oh, it's very unique. Like, if someone came out with Xycia fabric, whatever, I'd be like, all right, let's see the case on that. Cause that's something that is kind of unique, not PS5, like 2 letters and a number. Like they could be anything. Like really they could, that could just be his business that he does carpet cleaning or something. Like who knows? I mean,
he'd have to give information on what it stands for.
Yeah.
This is obviously a case of somebody who's being a shit disturber. And knew
Why
exactly
not?
what he was doing. I mean, why would it's kind of like when somebody takes a domain hostage, right?
Right.
Then the person wants it back. Like, there's a lot of different political domains that get stolen, and then they're like, haha, you want it? You got to buy it, kind of thing, or just corporate domains in general. It's a similar idea. I just don't know if it's going to work out for this guy the way that he thinks it's going to work out. But it's definitely costing Sony some time, or at least probably their legal team some time to figure out, which is unfortunate because time is not in their favor right now with a lot of the things going on.
Oh, no, not with all the delays that but both sides wanted to do about saying anything definitive about these consoles until the last minute. I just tried to pull up the public records because the Games Radar article that we got this from has a link to the public records in India government. And it pulled up and it basically said wasn't found. So who knows? Maybe it's already taken care of.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Well, switching over to some different news and switching over to one of our favorite reoccurring segments.
My favorite.
That's right. It is Xycia's Cyberpunk 2077 weekly update.
And don't get me wrong, I'm probably not the only one excited about this game. Like, obviously, Phoenix is excited about this. Dymyrn's excited about this. I don't even have it pre-ordered. I'm pretty sure Bruno's already got it pre-ordered. So there's already that. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to pre-order.
I'll be waiting.
He's going to wait a week. He's got the hashtag. What was the hashtag again? It's willing to wait a week or something.
We would wait a week.
We would wait a week.
We would wait a week.
Which we talked about last week about their strike that they're or not strike. Their week. One extra day a week that they're having
mandatory.
To work, their mandatory crunch, and to kind of offset that.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, kind of offset that. That's what Phoenix is going to do is basically wait one more week, just to kind of just say that, hey, we would hang out and we would just wait another week for you to finish it up. You don't have to make anybody crunch. So that's a great movement. Go for it. Hashtag that all day long. I won't be doing that because I can't have this guy over here telling me what happened in the game and how awesome it was. So I'm going to have to pick it up day of. But I respect you, and I
would never do such a thing.
Yeah,
never.
There.
He's totally
that guy
evil.
down there.
Yeah, he's totally.
I would
evil.
never spoil a game for somebody. I don't know what he's talking about. I'll beat it before him and like rub it in his face and like maybe threaten him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't spoil it, but he would tell me like, oh my God, I can't believe you haven't seen this one part yet. Like, I can't wait till you get there. I'll be like,
I would
no.
also lie about the times when these things happen, so it completely throws him off. He'd be like, right at this point in the game, that asshole told me something big happened.
Yeah, and
then he'd probably just walk through an alleyway and nothing would happen.
Literally like how the scary games are going to go coming up, because you guys have already flooded me with all these scary game moments that I'm expecting to happen, and I'm sure I'll get scared somewhere else. So.
I mean, in one of the scary game moments, I already pretended that I was some weird embodied like dead corpse when I was just a glitch, but we'll see.
We'll see what happens. That's unfortunate. Oh man. Anyway, so Cyberpunk news for this week. Obviously, if you are following Cyberpunk like I am, you're probably following them on Twitter. But the Twitter page, they announced them earlier this week, October 5th. They posted a pretty simple tweet, nothing too fancy. All it said was Cyberpunk 2077 has gone gold. And showed the little gold DVD or CD, I guess you could say, next to that. So see in Night City on November 19th. DVD. So if you're not familiar with what that means, it's not related to the music industry going gold. It's not that they sold that many copies so far. What that actually means is that they have finished the final distribution product that they're going to send to the game maker, the disc maker, to start publicizing that release. And so that's something that's exciting. Obviously, like we talked about with other patches, like games come out, there's obviously day one patches. There's obviously weekday passes. I mean, patches. There's going to be a lot of things going on with those. So, but what that sign means is that they're literally ready to start shipping the game. Like they're done working on it. And then you worry about the crunch. Then you're saying, like, why are they crunching?
Yeah, because they're still working on it.
So they're still working on it. The crunch is still that they're still working on it. Like when those games go out, there's going to still be bugs that are found later. But the game is in a sense, in a playable state now that is pretty finished. And that if they find a bug, because we'll find bugs depending on if you're on a PC, like the rig that you have may be different, and they may find out certain things don't work well. And then in the consoles, they may see something with the new consoles that doesn't work well, and they're still gonna be working towards that to try to get that stuff resolved. So,
Well, it essentially means they're confident in their
one
current.
of the things that happens.
Go ahead.
One of the things that actually happens with this is, and even some of this goes back to the Nintendo seal of approval, for Christmas sake. But they send this stuff before it goes gold out to like Microsoft and PlayStation, and they go through a certification process. And then they're like, oh, well, you need to fix this bug, and you need to fix this bug, and you need to fix this bug. And what they can do to pass cert, as it were, is that they can say, yes, when we get to that launch date, we will make sure these bugs are fixed and these ones are worked around. So some of what they're doing right now is they're working on known bugs.
Yeah.
When that goes gold, it isn't like they don't have bugs in it right now. They absolutely will have bugs in it that could even be game-stopping bugs.
Yep.
There was a game released sometime in the last year. It was a Tomb Raider game. And the person played it all the way through, and he goes, man, I can't believe this ending. This ending was crazy. I can't believe they brought back this old enemy, and was talking all about it. And everybody on the internet was calling him a liar and saying that this is BS. And why are you doing this? Why are you lying to us? Because no one saw any of this. Because the guy played the game in an area where he didn't really have internet. So he played the original disc version with no day one patch. And what had happened is that Tomb Raider had patched out and changed the ending, the cinematics and everything for this game with the day one patch. And no one believed this guy until someone else happened to be in the same situation and said, no, look, I'm taking video and it's because it isn't patched. And then I have a little bit of faith back in the internet, because some of these people that were saying he was a liar actually apologized to the guy and said, I'm so very sorry.
Yeah. And that's
cool.
Just on the same sense, like we've been talking about with the whole having to have internet to play games. What would be cool, and I'm not saying this will actually happen because there are going to be too many bugs to actually wear this. What would be cool is a company releases a game with like an Easter egg ending now, because everybody's required with internet. And that if you don't play with internet, you actually see this Easter egg ending versus, and in this case, I guess that was it, but not really intended that way.
And then everybody calls you a liar.
Everybody calls you a liar.
Way to be a dick developer.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's cool though. I'm gonna try that. So
that's not an Easter egg. That's trolling.
Yeah, pretty much. So the other news I have this week for you for Cyberpunk 2077 is it's a little tidbit, and unless you're fluent in Russian, this probably isn't going to be the greatest experience for you. But what did happen is they actually the Russian side of CD Projekt Red announced a special city Night City Wire to show off some of the gameplay and also talk about the voice acting, the actors that they have signed up to do the Russian voice actors. And so the video is posted on their page, and it's basically 26 minutes, like kind of like the same length that we usually have. Most of the video is talking about the vocal or the voice actors that are on the gameplay, and you know the ways they captured the voices and captured the essence of the game to really make those voices happen. So unless you really understand Russian and that's really your thing, it's not going to make a lot of sense for us in the US at least, because we're going to be playing an English style game. We're going to be playing the English version, which are different voice actors, different people that are going to be playing the game. So that may not be super, you're up your alley, but
it's subtitled, right?
It is subtitled.
You sound like you.
Yeah.
Okay. Cause I don't know, but like the people speaking Russian and Cyberpunk to me seem to kind of go in hand. So even if I'm not going to play it that way, it sounds like a pretty damn cool thing to go watch.
So it is cool. I just want to put the disclaimer that if you are going to pick the game up in the US and you're playing the English version, these aren't the same voice actors that are going to be playing or they're going to be used in the game that you're going to be playing. So I'm sure they have the same motives, the same way that they're going to approach the project and really make the characters the same way. It's just you can't really associate that with these people essentially because they are different. That's the disclaimer. The other part of the video, the very beginning of this video, the important part is that they also show us a little bit more of the gameplay from the Braindance gameplay that we've seen in the past. So it spends about 2 minutes of the intro actually showing a little bit more of the character development, like, well, not character development, but you get to meet a little bit more of the character that they have in the game. That you're going to be working with. Typically, her name's Evelyn Parker. That's one of your like people that you've seen a lot in the trailers and things. So it has her a little bit in the trailer a little bit, or the gameplay, and then also a little bit more of how you get to that Braindance gameplay. So that's really interesting. If you're interested in Cyberpunk and actually wanting to see that, it's pretty neat to go check out. And obviously, if you want to sit through the subtitles, that's great too. It is cool. I did get through it, but it's obviously not for everybody, but definitely check it out. That's our little teaser for this week. And with that brings us to our moment of listening to our ad from our sponsor. So hang out, obviously listen to the sponsor, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. And we're back. And we're gonna start.
We never left.
Yeah, I know, we never left, and we're gonna get into the segment we do with what we've been playing recently. I will start this off with we usually start this off with our game of the moment that we've been playing. Game of the moment this past week, going to the October scary, spooktacular, Shocktober theme, as we played a game called PhasmoPhobia. And if you're not familiar with PhasmoPhobia, it is a $13.99 game on Steam, so not very expensive. But it is a basically put yourself in the shoes of a ghost hunter. You can play up to 3 other people, so 4 players total. And you have all of the equipment that most ghost hunters have. You start off in a van. You can pick up in like the beginning of the game. You can decide what kind of equipment you have when you get money and stuff. But you start with flashlights. You have your little spirit box. You've got your video cameras and your like regular point and shoots. And you take all of that equipment. You go into the house and you start investigating to see if you can find a ghost. And initially, I know there were some problems that Phoenix and Dymyrn were kind of seeing as we started the game. It was
you're starting this all wrong.
So there were some issues.
We started with 4 people. 2 of them were creeped out by the game.
Yeah, you're right.
And the other 2 of us were extremely salty by the design of the game.
Yeah.
And we're like, it was just like little things that were kind of important, because it's like, oh, this key is how you throw something down. Got it. Okay, so I'm trying to put the camera down here to record. So I throw it down. It goes blunk, 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 blunk. And I'm like, well, son of it. How am I supposed to? And I keep trying it. No, how you put it down nicely is you have to use the secondary use key. And it was hilarious because I found this out by myself and I was extremely salty about it. And then Bruno comes in 10 minutes after me.
It wasn't, yeah.
And
that.
Shit you not, just about everything I complained about, that being one of the things, he complained about almost in the same verbiage. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was like West Coast,
and
East Coast.
Even more amazing is that once we actually started playing the game, especially with Mike and our guests that we had with us, we didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
Because this is a game made by one person in Unity. And yeah, it's got its hiccups. It's got a couple problems, but it makes up for it because it's first person or VR.
I was going to say,
and the guy who did it,
right.
The guy who did it in VR said it was like just nuts.
So the disclaimer is that me and our guest, we were both
this weekend.
Oh, you're going to try it out?
I'm definitely going to do it in VR.
So
nice.
So
as he shows the vibe.
Dymyrn and Phoenix were both like more about the game design. I was already freaked out, not even leaving the van. Like just
right.
Playing the game to me was already freaking me out. And I hadn't even left. And then our friend that was joining us was playing in VR, which is kind of funny at the beginning because if he stands up, he stands up. And if he goes to sit in his chair, the game registers him as crouching. So he's crouching and he's like doing all these weird like movements the whole time, and he's like pointing at stuff.
It looks like he dropped his contacts and he's trying to find his glasses or contacts.
It was great. And overall, like from my perspective, the controls really did bother me initially.
Yeah.
The tutorial of the game did not strike well with me, but the game does something very right. Horror games don't usually do much for me because it's not that I don't get scared easily or anything. It's just that I'm I'm a very practical person. Like my imagination is not my strong suit with a lot of things. So when I got into the game, I was like, yeah, whatever. And like I was the first one running into the house, and I was like, Ghost, what up? Like, come out here so I can fuck you up. Helen. But like, what I found interesting is even though those games don't usually work for me, there was actually a few times where the audio cues that they used and the time was fantastic. Just like the thing that the developer did really well, and that I can't commend the person enough for, is the silence and the time in between events feels so good because your input matters so much that it feels right. It's not just like a jump scare for jump scare's sake. It's a jump scare that your actions, your movement within the house, the noise you make, you talking to the ghost, all those things contribute to when it comes out, which makes the immersion almost high enough to where even if you're not someone who gets genuinely scared at horror games, it still kind of fucks with you, which is great.
They do two things really well. The first part, as you said, when you walk into a house, it gives you that silence, but what it's really playing is a low frequency sort of noise that kind of represents going into somewhere where you're like really just focused and just listening to the ambiance of the room, right? They do that really well. So there's a distinction between you walking into a building, then leaving, and you can hear, basically you just start focusing. It's like, whoa. So it kind of takes out all of the other elements in your, like even the room you're sitting in when you're playing. The second thing they do really well is that it's voice recognition. You said that a second ago, but it's to touch on that, because what they've done is they've actually taken the speech pack from Windows and incorporated that into the game to where when you talk, the way to get the ghost to actually react to you is by literally just talking. So you're walking through the rooms and you're saying, they give you the name of the ghost. Like in this case, we're talking about Helen. They give you the name of the ghost and you're saying, you know, Helen, are you here with me? Are you old? How old are you? Are you scared? Are you angry?
And if you have the spirit box, right, and you ask certain questions, it'll actually answer you. Usually in a pretty creepy way too.
Yeah. So I don't like scary games. I've said this before. I literally can't shit you not. I've been playing this game more than I've played any other game recently. I've played it now. I even played it before we started our podcast today. I was playing it with my wife. My wife even is enjoying this. She's all about ghost hunting games and stuff, but that was interesting to see that she was.
And she's creeped out.
And she's actually really good at it. We actually solved her first one completely, which was great because she was like, we need to do this, this, and this. Like she just knew. But the bigger part of it is that I'm actually enjoying it because of the fact that there is all these little elements that really make the game work. And today, like she was on there playing and she had the spirit box in her hand and she said, we needed one last thing to check off our checklist basically. And she goes, she's like, I want to take the spirit box in the room and I'm going to go ask. We already knew the room. We knew exactly where this ghost was at, for the most part. And she goes into the spirit box. She goes, hey, are you angry or how old are you or something to that nature? And then all she hears back is bitch. So she's like, well, she goes, well, that's fine. I got what I needed. I'm out of here. And we left because she responded.
And to give some context, you have a journal that you bring in there and you have different ghost types because you're trying to figure out what type of ghost it is. So the ghost removers can come in after you, the ghost busters, as it were.
Right.
And different ghosts have different things that are associated with them that you can pick up with your different pieces of equipment. So you're trying to figure out what type of ghost it is based on like, is it freezing temperatures? Does it write in a book? Does it talk to you on the spirit box? Are there ghost orbs that float around? And so there's all these different tasks that you're trying to do. And you get so focused on those tasks. And I'm kind of in between Bruno and Mike here. Like I got a great imagination. I just it can be really grounded at certain things. Like there's certain movies that have no problem suspending disbelief. And I'm like, take me to your universe. And I don't care if the rules matter or not. I'm just going to follow along. And then there's other things like horror games. I'm like, oh, this is so formulaic. I know I'm going to open this door and it's going to be looking down the basement and you're going to jump scare me. And it gets boring. And this game isn't like that.
Yeah.
The audio that we mentioned, besides being fantastic, is positional.
Yep.
So there's a lot of times that you'll hear something off on a certain side, or everybody will hear the same thing at the same time because we're like talking and we're saying the ghost name and we're pissing it off, and it just goes all of a sudden, and everybody hears it. And then you turn around and it flashes in front of you and disappears, which happened to me. So I snapped the picture too late. I was like, oh, that means I got to stay here and I got to take the picture again.
Yep.
And then it showed up again and I took the picture and this little child ghost started walking at me. And I was like, okay, I got the picture. Everybody out now. Go. And we all ran downstairs and ran up to the door.
Well, I died.
We're like, the door's locked. It's locked us in here. We can't get out. And we're all like crowded around the door and we're all like shining our flashlights around, which are blinking on and off. And we're like, okay, I don't see it anymore. Is it gonna, cause it'll kill you. It will kill people. Yeah. And we kind of took that to the next level a lot of times, kind of like we did Among Us, where if we died, pretty much we shut up.
Yeah. And we also didn't know a lot of the gameplay. We had to kind of look it up because obviously this is a pretty like new game, kind of independent, obviously not a big studio. This is one person that made it. The other part too is the game is definitely designed for VR. So that was one of the things at the beginning. We were trying to look for all these design things. Yeah. And really you can tell it was designed for VR, but it still plays well with regular keyboard and mouse, which is great.
Just the doors.
The other aspect.
The doors are terrible.
Doors are terrible. I'll give you that.
But it adds to it.
But it does add to it.
You can't open them very fast.
How frantic you are.
No,
You're
I
like,
want to
no.
get through.
Yeah, open the door. The biggest thing to me, though, that I think it does well, and I think you kind of touched on this already, but the biggest part of it is basically going back to like old horror movies where it's like the 70s, like even Jaws. Jaws is a perfect example of this. Not even really a scary movie in the sense of like Ghost, but you don't really see the shark until like the ending. And what they do a lot in this game is, like most horror games, there's a lot of jump scares, there's a lot of like things in your face, and you're kind of just shooting it and whatever. There's a lot of times
you might just hear a noise a couple of times.
We were in a room. It took probably 30 minutes for us to really find any activity. But we heard little things here and there, maybe every 5 or 10 minutes apart.
We'd see like blocks moving across the ground.
We were like, did we see that? Did that actually? Because you're sitting there for so long, you're like, you think you already know everything, and you're like. And then you come around and all of a sudden...
It's very interesting in that way. Like sometimes you'll just be like, wait, was that there? And like, I'm very good at like usually remembering things. Sometimes I walk into a room and I'd second guess myself because I'd be like, I swear that there were 4 blocks on the floor. Each one of them had a letter, but the W was the last one, not the first one.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and you start to walk out and your flashlight would start to flicker and you're like, oh shit. And you'd spin and there'd be like a brief second where you see something on the wall and then it disappears and you're like,
yeah.
Yep.
All right, this is it.
Or the closet door is now open. You're like, did someone open that closet door? And they're like, oh, I don't know if I ever did that or not. And you're like, I don't think anybody else has been in there. It's just been me. Obviously, go ahead.
They didn't, like Mike was saying, they didn't overuse the ghost.
Yeah.
They didn't overuse it. Even when one of the last ones that we played last night, we played almost till midnight.
It was great.
I was playing with the lights off and my sanity was 0. So as soon as I walked into the house, the activity would pop off and it would almost immediately go to 7 to 8. It'd top out at 10. If anybody came with me, it was almost instantly at 10. And we walked in 4, 5 times, like trying to check things out and trying to get some more information. And it's at a 10 and things would flicker and we'd hear a sound and we'd all run out or go to the locked door, but we didn't see the ghost like 4 or 5 times. And then like the 6th time we saw the ghost and it killed Mike.
And it killed me just for no reason. So we could talk about this probably for a long time.
Yeah.
I will say this is one of the games that, well, before we get there, the last thing I want to talk about of this before we move on is the other aspect too, is not just the ghost hunting. There's also an aspect of being the person in the van, which is also really interesting. Actually, two parts, I guess. This is one of the parts. So one of the last parts is the person in the van, because that person's very detrimental or actually important to the ghost hunting, because they have to watch the camera. They get to see what you put
Watch
down.
for the ghost orbs.
And watch for the orbs. There's also a couple monitors that you have that can tell your sanity, and then also has a map to show where the locations are. And then there's also the activity meter that's inside the thing. So it tells you when it goes from 0 to 5 to 3 to 2 to 10. And we had a picture of it was 0 and then 10. And it went for that for probably 15 seconds, and then it dropped back down to a 0. And so things like that were really interesting. So we did mention people were dying. I died a couple times, and I think we all died at some point. The death part is actually also really cool, because what they do is they put you in a sense where you are in a ghostly state. You can see other ghosts, people who have also died, but the ghost isn't just you don't just see the ghost running around. You only see the ghost when they see the ghost, except it's still not easy to see them. They're in the dark, but it's all kind of gray, white, but you can still see it.
Yeah, ethereal.
It's a little ethereal,
very
ethereal. But it's still at that point, it's still pretty creepy. It still can scare you if you turn around and it's in your face. It's still there. So, so what I was going to say is basically this game, out of all the game of the moments we've played in a while, has been actually something that I'm very interested in and very actually impressed with. It's actually kept my attention. It's very new, very original, and not saying I love scary games, because I really don't, but it gives me enough to want to keep going back and play, because the investigation portion, I played today and we were able to complete one and we got out of there. We just did our investigation. We left. Nobody died and nothing really got crazy. We just kind of, did our part, did what we needed to do, and get the hell out of there. And that's it. And that's really what's really neat about the game.
Yeah.
Best $14 that I spent for a while. Plus, it's almost like a cooperative version against a AI-based intruder or infiltrator version of Among Us.
Kind of. Yeah. Oh,
in some ways.
Last part, proximity chat. So the voice thing is proximity chat. You can literally go in the house and use proximity chat. We worked today, and you can do local chat. So my person's talking, you can hear me talking from my projected voice. And then you also have a radio. So playing with that portion, not using Discord, is actually even more creepy, because then you only hear what people are doing when they're in the rooms they're at. And then that's really cool. So that's it.
Yeah, if they're in the basement, can't hear them.
If we can talk this much about this game, this is the most we've talked about any game, I think, in any one of these sessions. So I went into it thinking it was just going to be okay. I agree with the overwhelmingly positive ratings it has. This is a fantastic game. The person who designed it did a great job. Immersion is fantastic. The investigation is great. All of the aspects of this game, when it's said and done, the controls don't even matter anymore, because the game just works through and through.
It will scare the shit out of you.
Yeah.
It is exactly what it is designed to do, and it does it better than anything I've ever played, period.
Agreed.
So we also played some other things this week. I know both of you guys, and I know me too, was also very interested in this coming early access, but I'll let you guys talk about it. What'd you guys play?
I'll be real quick. Or I guess I'll let Brian go first.
Whatever. Baldur's Gate 3, and downloaded it. I dedicated a lunchtime to trying to play it, which meant that I dedicated lunchtime to filling out crash bug reports over and over again.
Hey, that's a good part.
I don't say that to be mean. I say that because I actually honestly want to make the game better. So I was happy to do it. And I had different crashes, and I was filling them out and giving details and I was I wasn't mad at all.
The game was known to be early access, and they literally said that up front. This is not a spoiler.
But it had nothing to do with that. It was all my AMD drivers were out of date. As soon as I updated them, it was rock solid. Now, not to say it's rock solid for everybody. There are plenty of bugs in it. It is early access. But in my case, the crash after crash after crash was because my AMD drivers had to be updated for I have a Radeon 5700 XT. So I needed to update those.
Always update your drivers.
Update your drivers. Before you blame the manufacturer, update your drivers. Once I updated my drivers, after work, I got to play it for quite some time until I got called in for more ghost hunting. which I gladly did. And I enjoyed it. I really had a lot of fun. It was fun. I died and I was like, oh, I had to go back to a much further back save. Okay, fine. I got to remember, save and save often. Jesus saves, so should you. But
and I say Jesus as well. Oh man.
But it was fun because, you know, then I was like, okay, yes, remember to save. And I remember to save, and I died again. And I went back to that save and I was like, okay, now I've learned more about what worked and what didn't work there. What other option can I had? Because both times I died in combat. And then this next time I was like, oh, I found a way to just avoid combat. And none of this was save scumming where I kept, I didn't like that outcome and I'm going to reload this save. No, I only reloaded when I died. And there were some outcomes I didn't like. I rolled badly on something that from watching the previews, I knew that something cool could happen here and it didn't happen for me. And I was like, whatever. There will be other cool things that will happen.
Yeah.
The combat was a lot smoother and faster than I thought it would be for being essentially turn-based. I was really shocked. Now, okay, so let's back up. Baldur's Gate 3, $59.99 right now on Steam or Stadia and I think one other place, not on consoles yet, for early access, only chapter one, right. About a 60 to 70 gig download. It is a kind of 3/4-isk perspective, camera outside of your character, because you're going to have a party of characters, role-playing game in the D&D 5e universe. And you can move the camera a little bit closer and a little bit further up. Everything looks so fantastic. I was really bummed that I couldn't rotate the camera up to like see a skybox or see what was up above me, because it was super cool looking. And I don't know, I have been having a blast playing it. I think the voice acting has been pretty good. It is early access, so they don't have like some of the lip syncing in or stuff like that. It is meant to be providing information to Larian Studios so they can make the game better for when it actually releases.
Yep.
Bruno.
Yeah, same thing. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that I played. I probably only clocked about 6 hours on it in total. I've been playing it with some friends. I didn't have any crash issues, but I had updated drivers, so I guess lucky me on that front. The game has a fair amount of bugs. It's exactly what I expect considering it's early access, but there's a very robust framework. You can, if you've ever played the Divinity games, especially 2, Divinity Original Sin 2, then you can see a lot of that game's aspects in Baldur's Gate 3, and that is nothing but a good thing, because Divinity Original Sin 2
Original Sin 2 was great. I still haven't completed it, but it's great.
Yeah, so it's just got like additional aspects that really help the game from like the D&D 5e portion of it, because there's a lot of things where just the weight of adding rolls to so many aspects of the game and so many more checks makes everything you do that much more impactful, which in our playthrough turned out that we ended up killing or having 2 of the playable characters die within the first hour that we did not go back for. We were actually, one of them we just killed, and then the other one died just by happenstance. And we were like, whatever, we'll roll with it. And the decisions that we made resulted negatively for us in many occasions, and we just rolled with it. And that's really cool because the outcomes are different. One of the main people I was playing with was playing in their own save file while I was working. And then when I got off work, they were like, well, that's really weird because none of this shit was here when I came through here. It was completely different. And I was like, oh, and he's like, never seen this before. That's really fucking weird. So there's a lot of aspects like that. The game has a long way to go, but the framework that exists right now is extraordinarily promising.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things
I love the fact that when you're playing it, you feel okay. You feel great even though you didn't have the best outcome. Like there's not this overriding desire of like, oh my God, I got to win and I have to have the best outcome of everything. I've got to have like the most health when I'm done fighting. I got to have all the treasure. I got to figure out all the, no, I mean, I felt okay with continue on going, oh yeah, you win some, you lose some. Let's go see what's around the next corner.
So,
and goodness,
I haven't played this game yet. I haven't played it yet. I'm probably going to wait. I'm most likely going to wait till the game releases to really dig into it. I just don't have the time really right now. But just listening to what you guys are saying, what it sounds like to me is it's more of a true D&D game. Because like you're saying,
yes,
you know, not worrying about min-maxing and making sure that my health is completely at, 100% or making sure that I have all the stats. Like it's, when you play D&D, that's how it is. Sometimes you make a battle and sometimes you barely leave it alive and you're like, all right, that's fine. Maybe you don't win the battle.
Or the rolls. You have rolls of like, oh, you have like this guy put a knife to your neck and wrestles you down to the ground. Like it was one of the things I had. And it's like, you can do a dex roll to roll away from it. You can do a strength roll. And it's like, okay, well, here's a strength roll. And it isn't just like, oh, it's like, yes, you passed. It has a D20 in the middle. It's prominently in the middle of the screen. And right above it, it says what you need to pass to check it. And on top of that, it doesn't tell you what your bonuses are, which I was like kind of looking for a character sheet. I was like, okay, what should I do? Should I do bonus or strength? And I did that one time and I was like, who cares? Either I know my character or I don't. And on top of that, I just want to do what I think the character would do, regardless of what my stats were. And it made the roll all that much more of like, oh my God, I want to see what this roll is, because I didn't know what my bonuses were. And it felt really neat doing that. And you roll the dice and it kind of spins around like, and it's showing the different faces until it ends. And you like either pass or fail. And you know right away because it tells you what you got to beat. And it just, it brought that real world tabletop D&D into this in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother doing that for combat because I'd slow combat way down too much, but it does it for these like almost cinematic parts. It does it for if you want to do a particular action, like try to figure out what these sigils say that you don't know how to read that are on this console.
Yeah.
And I failed 2 of them and I succeeded on 1 of them. It does it in the right place. So there isn't too much of it. It does it enough that you get that feeling of like, oh, I'm rolling dice and sometimes I'm going to make it. Sometimes I'm not. And if you don't make it, it's not like you can keep doing it. It's like, you don't know what those sigils say. You might as well just continue on because you ain't going to be able to read them.
And you still have crit fails and crit successes in combat. And like,
oh yeah,
it really, like so many things in the game help. My example was similar. You get this option and I'm like, I can say one line to somebody who's being rude to me or another line. And like, this is a character that you have met before in the game. And I chose one. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, if I say this, it almost sounds like me and them are kind of against each other. And I succeeded. And the person kind of like gets a free option and you get to choose who you want to ally with. And I asked the person I was playing with, which usually that's a point of contention. Like, do you want to kill this person? You want to save them? And everyone's first choice is like, well, let's save them. This is a character we can use. And we're like, nah, considering how the conversation went, we should fucking murder this person. And I was like, all right. And I just slammed my halberd right into their face. I was like, we're going to go for it. And we just killed them. No remorse. It was just like, this is how it played out. This is how the story feels like it should go. This
That's
person
awesome.
was a dick. I rolled in favor of this person being a dick, and now this person is dead because that's just how it works out.
That's
so
awesome.
It does really good at that. One last thing to note from my point of view, I played the game yesterday. There were massive issues with reference to stability in multiplayer, like ridiculous amounts. My FPS was so variable. There were so many problems that I couldn't even stream the game. It was bouncing between 120 and like 10. Today, they released an update completely different. My FPS is like really stable in multiplayer. I have almost none of the issues I had yesterday. So they are seemingly pushing out really good updates very quickly.
Not only that, okay, so I almost put this as one of our stories, but I didn't. But Larian Studios reached out directly to NVIDIA and said, please send us a 3080 so we can work on that part of it.
Makes sense.
So
send someone with fat capacitors.
And yeah, right. The last thing I want to say about this before handing back to Dymyrn for the next game is Larian Studios said they wanted to have this feel like we're the players and that the computer is the DM. And they wanted to have this DM player type relationship and make it feel like you were playing D&D and had this DM, guiding you through your story, but still very much that, you were the author of the story. And even for the short amount I played, I think they nailed it. There's going to be parts of it that aren't as good. Obviously, there's going to be like choices you make, dialogue that they say something a little bit different than you thought it was, but that's okay. I mean, that's some license, just suspend your disbelief a little bit for that.
Yeah.
For the most part, boy, they've been doing a great D&D job.
Yeah, I agree. And then I'll take us into our final game that I think all three of us have 100% played. I have played the most of, I believe, by far. I've played 35 hours of this game in the last week, which is insane. It's a lot for me. It is Star Wars Squadrons. So this game is a recent release, came out last week. It is $39.99, so it's a $40 game. It is by EA, which definitely scares some people. To note on the EA front, there are no microtransactions. There are cosmetics and things that you can unlock. They are totally unlocked via in-game currency that you gain just by playing the story, playing multiplayer matches, winning, losing, it doesn't matter, doing your daily challenges, whether that be dodge X amount of missiles. So it's like a space flight simulation fighting, like dogfighting game. This game really does so much right as a space fighter, like space simulation
I would agree
fighting
with that.
game. It's great. It plays extraordinarily well. The ships are really well designed. The story is essentially just one giant tutorial. I have played through all of it, but even then, it is still really enjoyable. The real game starts when you get into multiplayer, when you're doing dogfighting, which is just 5v5 matches, or you're doing the fleet battles, which is also 5v5 matches, or 5 people versus AI, where your objectives are to go back and forth and destroy each other's capital ships and defense ships in order to win the match. The game overall works just through and through. They did have some issues. It is a VR. It is a multifaceted game. You can play it on your desktop, or you can also play it in VR. The VR has been plagued with a lot of problems with crashing.
Yeah.
I have not tried it in VR yet. I have people that have tried it. The replies that I get back, like the feedback, is that when it works in VR, it just works. It's just amazing. It's like a really clean play. Like it's just great to play the game in VR.
How's the HOTAS been?
Pardon?
Hands-on throttle and stick for those that are not used to it. Having actual flight stick and throttle.
So that's another part that is a downside right now. The release came with a wide variety of issues for HOTAS users. I do own a flight stick and throttle. I could not use them worth a damn in the game because there was a dead zone configuration, which essentially meant that for me, my personal version, there was roughly a 35% dead zone for the inner 35% of the radius of my flight stick that did not work.
I couldn't play Rocket League
when I
with
say
that.
dead zone, it was just there's nothing. There's no control until you leave that 35% zone. But the problem that comes in is when you do the first portion, like the first half of that part that starts working, you have very little control. It barely moves your ship. And then the final portion, there's too much control. It's like too responsive. So controlling your ship becomes next to impossible. They did release an update as of today that has apparently resolved all the issues with the dead zones for both HOTAS users and controller users that were having it. I have not played yet today, but the feedback so far across some of the Reddit threads seems good. So hopefully that's corrected. The game, in my opinion, is definitely worth $40 through and through if you're into space sims. That's something I'm very much into. As a point of reference, I did buy No Man's Sky. I pre-ordered 3 copies of No Man's Sky, one for me, one for my wife, one for a friend. I did not refund any of them. If that gives you any indication of how into Space Sims I am. And prior to even a single patch release, a single major patch for No Man's Sky, I played 70 hours. So if you're looking for opinions on a game and you like Space Sims, then yes, cool. Star Wars Squadrons for you. If you're like on the fence, I'm probably not the person to talk you into it because I'm super duper into them. So this game could have been mediocre and I probably still would have had a really good time with it. Would I have had 35 hours in the first week? Probably not. But I would have had at least
It's
10.
not mediocre.
It's
Yeah.
not mediocre.
Not mediocre
It is
at all.
definitely, in my opinion, if I had to give it an actual score, it'd be like an 8.6 out of 10, which is very high on my scaling because this isn't like some bullshit like, oh yeah, my bottom rating is 6. So 6 means it's unplayable and 10 means it's the decentest game in the world. It's like
So No Man's Sky was a 6.
No Man's Sky for me on release was a 4.
I would,
Okay,
yeah,
there
and
we
that's
go.
pretty good for.
And you
most,
still played
most
70
outlets,
hours.
yeah.
No Man's Sky was a 4. I stuck with it because it was a space sim. It had a lot of promise, and I wanted to see how much there was to offer. No Man's Sky now is a solid 9 for me because
Sure.
there's just so much to do in that game. The game has expanded so wildly. But we're not here to talk about No Man's Sky, Star Wars
DLC.
Squadrons. So
So no.
there
The
you
only
go.
thing I want to say about Star Wars Squadron is I'm not a huge flight sim. I don't have like the HOTAS or anything, but I do enjoy flight sims. And I've played Elite Dangerous. I liked Eve Online until I realized I couldn't actually be in the cockpit until I played a different version or whatever. And I do like those games. What this game did to me very well was the space. Like feeling like I was in space and how vast the maps or the worlds like we're flying around in were so just like unique and just realistic to me. That was one of the just flying around, being able to maybe shoot down a TIE fighter or an X-Wing depending on the side I'm playing, and just maneuver and kind of like spin a little bit and rotate and get around a rock or something, an asteroid, and then recover. Like that to me was super cool. I could do that all day long.
Yeah.
No problem. Anytime you ask me. The dogfighting aspect of it, to me, that game mode is just super hard. I don't have a HOTAS. I'm playing with mouse and key, or I'm playing with the controller. And it is tough. But I still respect it. I still respect the players that are playing really well with it. And it's just a really good experience. And then to me, the story was the main thing that I was interested in. And I'll probably still go back and play it because the story to me was the most interesting part. It felt like, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So seeing like me being able to be put in a seat of like an X-Wing fighter and be like, I'm the reason why the rebellion's winning. That's great. The downside that I did have, the cons of the game to me, where the dialogue between you and your co-pilots, like your other squadron members, to me felt very shallow. It seemed like I really didn't need their input. I don't even care to talk to them. Like there's like a point, it's like, hey, talk to them. And I'm like, I don't care. I'd rather just go into the mission briefing room, listen to the mission, get pumped, and then get in my X-Wing and fly away. So that was the main thing. The other part that I had with the problem to me with the immersion they had is that you join the game and you see like your character talking to another person and they're kind of doing that thing and it kind of zooms in and puts you into that person, like the camera angle. And you're staring at the big like TIE fighter in front of you, spoiler, but it's like the beginning of the game. And you basically, I sat there for like a few minutes with my controller going, is it not working? Like, is it broken? Like the controller's not working? And it's like, no, you don't move. Like your character doesn't have legs. Like it's just a point and shoot at that point. You're literally looking and I have to find the blip that says enter the ship and then I click on it. And to me, that ruined the immersion, especially even in like when you're in the docking station with all like when you're actually playing the game. Like all you do is this. I look around and I click on things. I don't actually I'm not saying give me an open ship that I need to run around and do all this fun stuff with. I'm not saying that. But give me a boxed off area that I'm supposed to run to click the button to do things. Because that to me makes me feel like I'm literally a person on the ship.
Especially since they had clearly 3D modeled all this stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was a 2D map.
Yeah, that was definitely a VR limitation that they put in.
Some of the things so I'm a big fan of this game. I haven't played it that much as I'd like because kind of Baldur's Gate got in the way.
Yeah.
And then totally out of nowhere, PhasmoPhobia really got in the way of me playing this game.
That too.
I played on controller as well. a couple of things. First of all, started up the game. Almost the very first thing that happens is a big old menu of accessibility options.
That was really neat.
It was awesome. It was, do you want text to speech? Do you want it to read subtitles out loud to you? If so, like, what volume do you like? How big do you want the subtitles to be? What kind of background would you like the subtitles to be? Do you have color blindness? What type of color blindness? What looks good to you? And it was really refreshing to see, again, because, we're talking about Shocktober and donating to able gamers. It was refreshing to see a developer think about that and realize that they need to address that first thing.
And it was
not like,
I'll say it's a huge chunk. Like at the beginning of the game, that is like, that wasn't just like an oversight. Like, oh, we should probably add that in. No, they like, this is what we added in the game. Menu. This is a part of the game. And like, you're going to look at this and really determine if you need it or not. So that was pretty cool.
So yeah, it was a giant menu. It was amazing. The depth that was in it. I was really impressed. And it wasn't like, these games where you have to play, 15 minutes of it and then you get a late title card, because that's a popular thing to do, is that late title card. And then, cause they like want to build the immersion right away. And I get that. That's an artistic choice. And that's a very cool choice, but that's very tough for someone that maybe has color blindness and you're highlighting things that you're supposed to interact with in a bright red that they can't differentiate from the green grass that's around it and stuff like that. So that's a very arduous, like 15 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes that these people have to go through to get to a title screen that they can get to options that they can then enable.
And that could be a 15-minute refund that quickly, like especially on the Steam store where you can return stuff.
So I thought that was amazing. I loved it. I actually took the time. I actually went through the different colorblind modes to see how it changed the colors and stuff. And I just thought it was really great. Then I'm like, I've created my character. And during that process, I thought it was really weird because, again, I was using controller, not keyboard and mouse. I thought it was really weird that they kind of swapped between, like, you press X to accept instead of A. This is on an Xbox controller.
Right.
So A is at the bottom, X is to the left. So it was like you press X to accept, but then the next menu, it was like press A to okay or B to no. And I was like, they kept swapping between this stuff. And it was that kind of like, it was really interesting to go from the really great design of let's start with accessibility to like this design where we're changing how you like interact with the stuff here of like saying whether or not you want to move forward. So that was kind of weird. Then we got into the first cutscene. That's when my wife walked in and she looks at the monitor and she goes, "Oh, that's cool. What are you watching?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm playing this." And she goes, "That's a game?"
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say this is the most amazing visuals of humans that there is. I mean, she didn't think it was real life or anything, but she probably thought it was like, a well animated special or something like that. But she had no clue it was a game. And then she saw some of the other stuff. She goes, "Oh, the Star Wars," like, because it wasn't obvious from the camera angle that it was Star Wars at that particular moment until it like sweeped over and she saw some stuff and then she immediately recognized the Star Wars. And I said, "Yeah, Star Wars Squadron." And she's like, she was blown away at how good it looked. Yeah. And this is the cinematics, not the flight or anything. Then we get to the flight. Now, I'm one of those weirdos. That if I am playing a first person shooter or something like that, if I move my mouse up or move my controller up, I expect to look up. But if I'm flying a plane, I immediately flip it in my head and I pull my stick down to climb.
Yeah.
And this is natural to me. I have done this in game after game, games that switch between first person perspective, like Crimson Skies for like the original Xbox was one of them. You walked around in first person perspective and then you went and played a game. And I could flip in the same game, no problem. As soon as you put me in a game, as soon as you put me into a plane or a flight thing, I immediately flipped my mind to flight controls. Didn't even think about it. Super easy.
Barely.
There was something about you talk about the scale here, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. But there was something about how they presented some of the flight stuff inside the cockpit that triggered my mind to go back into first person perspective every now and then flip me back to flight. So I was legit having problems with the controls. I put in flight controls like what I expected and found I was pushing the wrong way, but only some of the time. And then other times I was perfectly fine. And then other times I was pushing the wrong way because it felt like first person instead of flight. So I was like, okay, well, let me flip it to first person, see if no. And then I had the same problem. It's just, I was flipped in the flipped amount of times, I suspect that's something that's going to go away. I just think there's something odd about how they designed it where that might trigger for a couple of people, especially those that play both styles instead of sticking to one of them. If you stick to one of them, it's not going to be a problem, I don't think. The last thing, the scale, I agree with Xycia. I agree with Mike that the scale here is immense and feels fantastic, except for one exception. Anytime you get close to the capital ships. These capital ships are supposed to be massive compared to your vehicles. Now I get going along the length of it shouldn't take a lot of time because your ships are supposed to be like speedy little guys that are like going super fast compared to what these ships are cruising at. So that doesn't bother me. It's just the fact that when I get close to it, I don't know if the textures aren't detailed enough, which I get maybe why they wouldn't do that design wise to keep the game running fast or what it is, but it does not feel like this massive ship. It feels like a ship that is like my ship holds one person and it feels like I'm flying against this next to a ship that holds like 12 people.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. That's actually a good point.
They don't feel like these capital ships whatsoever. So I kept crashing into it. Like you watch the movies and they fly along a Star Destroyer and they're flying along and they're shooting down turrets and they got all this shit whizzing by them. So it feels like they're flying on top of a city, which is essentially what Star Destroyer is. Yeah. It's a city in space that, shoots stuff, where this didn't feel like at all. It felt like a Star Destroyer was like, I don't know, 20 times the size of my ship when it's really like, over 1,000 times bigger than my ship.
I wonder if the perspective will change that. It's kind of like in No Man's Sky.
Yeah, I wonder if VR.
It really changes. Like if you play No Man's Sky as a normal game, your regular ship just like kind of looks a specific way. But then when you put on a VR headset, your ship looks enormous. Like it actually seems crazy the difference when you're looking at your screen and you're sitting in your ship, and then even when you get into your ship in VR, you're sitting there and you're like, whoa, I am like 12 to like 20 feet off the floor, depending on how my ship is set up. And I'm like sunk into my cockpit. But like, I feel like it'll probably have the same feeling. Everything in VR with these space sims usually just feels ridiculously scaled up because it's just hard, I think, to show that size when you're not in VR. And I mean, we have somebody commenting that says that in VR they are just massive. So
I would like to say that both of these problems I ran into, which again are pretty particular to me, neither of them did I have that problem with, not Eve.
Elite Dangerous.
Elite Dangerous. Like docking in a station in Elite Dangerous, that thing feels massive.
Yeah.
That's
in a way that these Star Destroyers just don't.
That's a funny one that I can also speak to. Go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. And I think that in VR, I think the ship you're in is going to have a great sense of scale, but I still think you're still going to have that problem when you get close to the capital ships because of lack of detail on them, that they just look like this flat, featureless thing. So you don't have, and when you bounce, you seem like you bounce off of them way before you should, because if I'm coming down and swooping over a Star Destroyer, it should just about fill my horizon before I'm bouncing off of the hull. Whereas I feel like I'm either hitting a ship that is only a little bit larger than my ship, or I feel like I'm bouncing off the hull, 600 feet above the actual hull. So it just ruins the sense of scale altogether.
So the last thing I'm going to say before we move on, and I think we can probably all agree. I don't know, maybe not. The one thing that this game to me didn't do that I feel like any Star Wars or any game, even No Man's Sky does this. What's the coolest thing about flying in a Star Wars game is hyperspace. Being able to hit the overdrive button and just shoot off into hyperspace. And in this game, it doesn't allow you to do that. It says, go to this place, you fly to this location, we're going to jump, count down, 3, 2, 1, and then it just jumps. It doesn't give me the satisfaction of pressing the A button to jump or throwing my throttle up to jump. I mean, yeah, you can't do it all the time, but just in the sense of like, hey, this is the time to do it, push that throttle button up, and then you jump. It doesn't do that. No Man's Sky even does that to me, and that, to me, makes the immersion feel just that much better. So...
yeah. Well, I mean, that is the difference between a Squadrons game where you're doing fleet battles that's focused in on that versus kind of a more open world of No Man's Sky or Elite Dangerous. So I get why they do that, but I also get your point that, that's a major thing. It almost seems like they need another game for that.
Yeah. I mean, I just need a menu. All you need to do is pop an option that says press A to jump, and you just hit the button, and at least it feels like I did it. I don't know. I have some problems with this game, apparently with immersion that not everybody gets, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. I'm having fun. I like the game.
Yeah, same. I do like the game.
For me, I went in with the idea of what one of the people commenting in chat said. Yeah, I went with the idea that it's a 5v5 fighting game. Like, it's a dogfighting game. If I went into Elite Dangerous, I went into No Man's Sky, and it didn't have those functions, I would probably be like, well, this is part of the game. Like, this is part of the base portion of the base function of the game. Like, in both those games, jumping is something that you have to prepare for. Like, you are mapping things out in Elite Dangerous, figuring out where you're going, and you have your fuel and everything. And in No Man's Sky, it's the same thing. You have your hyperdrive, the type that you have. You're mapping out where you're trying to go. So you have all these things that you're doing to prepare yourself for your jump. In Star Wars, there's no place to do that, because the whole idea is you're in this section, you dogfight, and then story or plot if you're doing the story, and then you're in this section, new mission, you're going to fight. So every single time you're essentially reconvening with your primary ship and then leaving after resupply. And then if you're playing multiplayer, it's just 5v5. Yeah.
You're part of a fleet. You're not solo exploring the galaxy.
Yeah,
so
and I get that.
I'm
not
get
saying that I don't have to chart my galaxy out.
Yeah.
My main thing is give me the option to press the button. And if you think about it like that, yeah, this is a 5v5 dogfighting game. I get that. Well, they have a story mode. Just like Call of Duty. Call of Duty is a shoot 'em up multiplayer game. Still has a story mode, and the story mode is awesome usually. They usually are very cinematic, very involved. You're still doing things. Obviously, you're not doing a multiplayer, but they still have that. So this game had a story. Give me the option. I don't know.
Yeah, the story was a tutorial, though, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
From start to finish. Oh, if you guys haven't finished, the story is a tutorial. From start to finish, they're just teaching you new things.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Awesome.
Well, so with Bruno, that, I think we're going to start our short attention news.
All right.
Time to swipe right.
Time to swipe. Our first one, in the same vein of what we were discussing, Polygon released a news story. It's interesting. We picked it up. It's Star Wars Squadron is getting, or has gotten, a voice commands with a premium PC mod. Essentially, there is a mod group. They create something called the HCS Voice Pack. It's a mod that people in Elite Dangerous and No Man's Sky have been using for some times. And essentially what it does is it gives you an AI co-pilot. So the idea is that you can give voice commands to your ship, so to speak. Like, you have an AI co-pilot that can assist you in doing
Astro
things.
Droid.
Or droid.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's an entire video that goes over exactly what it does. It's like a 10 euros per voice pack. So it allows you to essentially give specific voice commands to do things for your control of your ship, weapons, firing, things like that, your general systems for your ship. And apparently I have not used it. I don't know if I'm going to pay for it. I might. It is pretty cool, but it gives you an additional layer of control, which honestly, when I reviewed it, the integration that you can do in between having working HOTAS and the voice commands looks freaking awesome, because the idea of focusing on flying my ship, and Squadrons has so many wacky ass control scheme buttons to click to fire things. The idea of aiming my ship and saying fire my photon torpedoes sounds fucking great. So that is something that's out there that we picked up. It looks pretty interesting, and I might test it out. If I do, I'll bring it back next time and give you guys some more information on how it went.
Cool. The next thing we have is if you're a fan of the Worms series, they just announced that they're going to have a new game called Worms Rumble coming to PlayStation 4 and 5. The biggest thing the first thing is their open beta for this game will be November 6th through 8th, and it's going to be free to all PlayStation Plus subscribers. So you're going to get this free if you end up having that subscription. The biggest thing that they said about this game, this is a real-time version of Worms. If you're ever familiar with the Worms series, it's usually a turn-based item where, it's like you take a turn to shoot and then you're trying to like move and get in place and things. This is actually like real-time, just fighting each other. There's apparently 3 game modes. There's a deathmatch versus, and then their own take on Battle Royale, so last worm standing and last squad standing. There's one arena and training level, one full launch arsenal of weapons, which they'll talk about later, and then 2 brand new utilities, a jetpack and grapple gun, that they're eventually going to be releasing. So that's going to be coming out, like I said, November 6th through 8th for the actual open beta, and it's going to be available on PlayStation Plus for free, so check it out.
Cool. In Steam news, as reported by The Verge, Steam is going to be hosting a festival for digital tabletop games this next month. It's going to be October 21st to 26th. So if you like tabletop games and have not been able to do it because of the new Rona economy that we're in,
Hashtag Rona economy.
Check it out, because these are digital versions of it. They're going to be not only just having games available, but they're going to have showcasing speakers like Steve Jackson, creator of the GURPS role-playing game, and other fun things. Call of Cthulhu RPG designer Sandy Peterson, Games Workshop co-founder Ian Livingston. A lot of people talking about stuff. And also there's going to be a panel about Mars, which is going to have actual scientists in it and actual space agency staff talking to game creators about what they got right and wrong about Mars. So check it out. Again, Steam's going to be sponsoring this October 21st to 26th. Also, in Steam news, looks like they just launched their Steam Festival. At least their Steam Fall Festival. So this is kind of similar to what we've seen with what PAX did with PAX Online. Steam is going to be doing their game festival, and they're going to have a bunch of game demos and live streams, and not just game demos like live streaming the game and showing you about the game, but it's literally going to be demos you can download of the games. And I checked it out. It isn't just the demos that were available for PAX Online. I saw new demos for games that I did not see that were associated with PAX, which they had partnered with Steam. So I was very excited. There were some games here that I think Xycia is going to like. I've downloaded a couple. I'll have to talk to him about it. Maybe we'll be able to play and maybe we won't. It depends on how long this is going to last.
Makes sense.
All right. Another story we have here is for Halo Infinite's release date. It has a potential leak from Amazon, not for the game itself, though I suspect that it is, due to the fact that historically this is the release for the art of Halo Infinite, which is obviously the art of the game that everyone is anticipating the release for. And based on previous releases, the artwork usually releases in tandem with the actual game. So there was essentially a selling portion put up that said that the Art of Halo Infinite would be available as of June 29th, 2021. So that is now the speculated date for the release. Although it is essentially indicated that June is a weird time for large games like this to release, though June 29th is not usually a placeholder date. So we'll see. Could be the correct release date for Halo Infinite.
So, in other news, Microsoft is basically kind of beating PlayStation on the cross-generation save transfer. This is a Kotaku article, but essentially what's being said is that the option of smart delivery is that also the fact that being able to transfer game saves between your Xbox One to your Xbox Series X is going to be a lot better and a lot easier and a lot more accessible for games other than the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5. So right now, a lot of game makers have already announced that they're going to allow versions to be purchased. If you buy the PlayStation 4 version or the Xbox One version, will carry over to the next generation series. But along with those, the saves are one of the most important parts that you can actually play that on the next gen console. Currently, there is a slew of games that are available for Xbox One, while PlayStation 5 really has only announced about 3 of their known titles that are going to be this option having available. So currently, Microsoft seems to be winning. We'll see if those kind of change in the future.
Absolutely. NBA 2K21 from 2K as a publisher got a lot of flack because they were charging extra money for the next gen version, like $70, as opposed to the normal $60 that we're used to this gen. So a lot of people were concerned that the prices were going to go up. And they said, hey, wait a minute, we're doing this because the extra effort that we put into the next gen versions, where we're seeing, like Xbox first party and even some PlayStation stuff where you can get the game for the same price on both. Well, then I went and looked at the pictures and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Because I looked at these pictures and I was like, oh yeah, that's the video game versus real life. And then I looked closer and I was like, holy cow, that's literally the PS4 versus the PS5. I legit thought the one on the right was real life. And
that's really realistic.
These screenshots are just looking amazing. So we'll have to see. Maybe it'll be worth it. Maybe it won't, but they got a case where they're making it look pretty good.
Speaking of case, Baldur was arrested and charged for selling Nintendo Switch hacks. Yeah, that's a play on words. This is another Verge article. But what's funny is 2 members of a console hacking group, piracy group, they're known as Team Executor. They have been charged and arrested for fraud, and one of those guys' name is Gary Bowser. So how fitting for a Nintendo type of hack here. But basically, the Team Executor is a sophisticated operations known best for Nintendo hacks, including a USB device that they called the SX Pro that allowed Nintendo Switch games, Nintendo Switches to run pirated games. So obviously, Nintendo's not a fan of that, so they decided to go ahead and arrest the people who are behind that. So Bowser was arrested, and the world is now saved.
Really quickly, I think there was some funny things about it because there were multiple people arrested in multiple countries. I think France, Dominican Republic, I think China. They had been using like encrypted communication to each other. And to be clear, they're not distributing pirated ROMs. They're providing equipment that allows you to like dump ROMs, which you can do legitimately non-pirate, to play on the Switch. So it'll be interesting to see how that case goes out. But that wasn't my story. Sorry. PAX Unplugged, which is the PAX for tabletop games, which is traditionally in November timeframe in Philadelphia. And this year, again, because of the Rona economy, has been officially canceled. That's right. PAX Unplugged has been canceled. They have decided not to do a digital version like they did for PAX Online, which was PAX West and PAX Australia, which kind of makes sense because it's a tabletop gaming convention, and going digital on it just doesn't make as much sense. So they're saying, hey, look for this next year. No word yet on PAX South, which is traditionally in the January to February timeframe, or PAX East, which is usually in the March-April timeframe. Both of which I'm going to guess are going to either be rolled into another online event or flat out canceled, because I just can't see them putting on an event for 70,000 people in Boston in March.
Yeah, I don't think many people are going to be doing much at this point. So, next article here is basically a company called Move Forward Music has partnered with Twitch to create a dedicated channel on which they'll stream live performances and different content based on a new festival. So the Move Forward Festival is going to be hosting a 2-day festival on October 17th and 18th, featuring performances by UMI, Guadad, 4000, Kari Fox, and also Kenny Mason, along with other different representatives. And basically in the music and the COVID, how music and COVID's been affected the music industry. They talk about in this article how obviously that has changed everything. And the big part to note about this is the Twitch stream is going to be completely free, along with the ads you have to watch by joining a channel. With the paid subscription option, those ads will be removed. And it'll allow you to interact with those streams. There's also some products and merchandise will be given away on those streams as well. So here we are again, seeing another music festival wanting to move to the streaming platform, which I think is a great idea. And we'll just see how this plays out once we get past this hashtag room economy.
And our final story for our shorts was actually sent to us by one of our viewers, James Great, as I think how he pronounces it probably. Anyways.
James Z. Great.
It's from Baldur's Gate 3's EULA. Essentially, it contains a Bardic Quest. Entertaining enough, the EULA reads, upon accepting this pact, you take on an additional quest to submit to Larian, one recording of a chant, song, text, poem, or interpretive dance performed by you and extolling your interests in the Forgotten Realms. Should you decline to undertake and finish this quest within the first 3 winters following your acceptance of this pact, you forfeit your subsequent fame, fortune, and or infamy as a founding member of our Guild of Great Genius. You hereby grant Larian Studios a worldwide, perpetual, and royalty-free license to share such recordings through Larian Studios' social media channels. So that is something that I 100% totally read prior to accepting the EULA and did not just blindly click yes, and I'm sure that Brian also saw it too. So
no, totally missed it. But I'm greatly amused that they're like extending this out over about a 2-year time frame. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that should be interesting. It's an entertaining little thing. I'm going to assume a fair amount of people are going to jump out there and do it.
I'm looking forward to your submission.
Yeah, I want to see yours too.
I might give it a shot. We'll see.
Definitely.
We have some talent in the house.
Yeah, hashtag it. Let's go. So this usually brings us to our email segment. This week we didn't have any emails, which is totally fine. We get it. If you have anything interesting that you want to send in or something you want to talk about from a previous podcast, feel free to send us an email at goa@sassgaming.com. Again, that's goa@sassgaming.com. We'll give you a chance to be able to read your email out loud, and we'll talk about it. We'll give you our opinion, or if you just want to tell us we suck, that's fine too. We'll also read that out loud. So
tell us what console you're going to buy.
Yeah, tell us what console you're going to buy or not buy. Tell us what graphics card that you've ordered that you didn't get. Oh man, there's a lot of things.
Tell us your horror stories, and we'll regale the world with them, anonymous or not, your choice.
Right. So that's what got our attention this week. If you're listening to the podcast, you can obviously check this out live on Twitch. If you're not, you can check it out in your podcast place that you're listening to this now on. Obviously, listening to the live podcast on Thursday nights when we stream on Twitch, that gives you a chance as a viewer to ask questions and kind of interact with us during our lull time while we're in between ad. So if you have anything you want to interact there, that's totally great. And then basically at that point, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on social media. I'm at Xycia, so Xycia. On Twitch, I'm Xycia Gaming on Twitter, and I'm also Xycia Gaming on Instagram. And then, yeah, you can follow us there. So, Brian?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitch. That's Phoennix Nova, PHOENNIX_Nova on Twitch. On Twitter, it's the same thing, just without the underscore.
And you can follow me at Dymyrn, DYMYRN for Twitch, and Dymyrn Gaming for both Twitter and Instagram. That's again DYMYRN.
So obviously shoot us a message, add us at Twitter, whatever you want to do. Again, we really appreciate all of you that are watching, listening, emailing. it's super great. This is episode 17, and it's just every episode seems to be like just that much more awesome to us. Like we're getting the fan reply from you guys at home and the ones that are listening, and obviously we have to stay together, be united during this time of just having to stay home and this hashtag Rona economy. But we definitely appreciate it. You guys help us get through it, and we're hoping that we help you also get through this. So until next time, obviously wear a mask, go vote, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for Shocktober. But yeah, we'll talk to you next time. Have a good night. Take care.
Yeah, play a lot of games. Love you guys.
Take her easy.